but welcome everybody. And okay, let's see, here we go. All right, so hi everybody, I'm Rebecca Green. I'm the founder of Dear Producer. This is not my house. This is a virtual cat cafe I've set up for today. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to our first Dear Producer webinar. For those of you who are new to Dear Producer, I created this website in 2017 due to a lack of information and education about producing and the work that we're doing. And I saw a need to help build the producing community. It's grown very quickly, but it's still all volunteer effort, pretty much just me, my friends that help me, and these wonderful producers like the people that are here today who give their time and knowledge out of the goodness of their hearts for all of you. So you find this webinar helpful. When this is over, I ask that you consider making a donation if you can, which you can do on the Dear Producer website, so I can keep doing this work and so I can keep the content free, which is something that's very important to me. You can also sign up for the newsletter on the website as well. I do have one amazing sponsor, Genuine Article Pictures, which has allowed me to continue this work and has made this first webinar possible. So a big thank you to them. You know, I want to kind of set the tone for this webinar. I've been reading everything that's been published about how COVID-19 is disrupting our industry. I've been on calls with nonprofits. I've been listening to other webinars. And in all of the conversations, I felt that people were putting on a happy face and were trying to be very optimistic. But that's not really how I'm feeling. And I know a lot of you guys aren't either. So I want to—
One way of putting it, yeah.
That's hysterical. We gotta get real up in here right now.
So, no, but I want to give everybody permission to just kind of feel disappointed. It's okay. Like, a lot has happened. A lot's changing in the world very quickly, in our personal lives and the work that we do. You know, there's just a lot ahead of us still, and it's a lot to process. So I don't expect our panelists to be all upbeat and excited about the future. You don't have to pretend. We are going to have some real talk today, but hopefully by the time we come out the other side of it, you will feel a little better. And so, yeah, that's the tone. There's a lot to cover. You know, every aspect of our industry is shifting and changing. But for this conversation, I really want to focus as much as possible on what we as producers are dealing with right now in this moment, and for us to try to offer you guys some tangible advice out of sharing our experiences that you can take back to the work that you're doing. And I have some of my favorite producers, people here to share with you what they are going through and how they are navigating kind of this new way of life. If you have a question, add it to the Q&A box, not the chat. I have prepared a lot of questions and a lot of you wrote them in, so I don't know how many I'll get to. And also, this is my first webinar. I've moderated tons of panels, but this is my first virtual one. And also, I think probably the biggest audience. So just be patient with me and with my panelists. It helps if you put your view in gallery view, I think, because I want this to feel like a panel so you can see everybody. So to get started, I'm not going to read through everyone's bios. You can find them on the website where you registered, but I'll give a quick introduction of each person and then we'll dive in. So Avril Speaks is currently producing the feature film Daddy and Soul, which had to shut down production due to shelter-in-place order that was issued by the state of Oklahoma. Kelly Williams, along with his producing partner Jonathan Duffy, produced the feature I Used to Go Here and executive produced the short Rules for Werewolves, both which were set to premiere at South by Southwest. And Kelly and Jonathan also produced No Future, which was set to premiere at Tribeca. And Effie Brown, in January of this year, was named the new CEO of Game Changer, the first film financing fund buy-in for women, and was about to begin to launch her new slate of films and start accepting new submissions. And then all of this happened. So
Thanks
so
for bringing us all down, man. So January was such a good time.
It was such a good month for you.
And so long ago.
She gave a great keynote at Sundance.
I know, I was dancing.
Yes.
Now I'm sitting in Echo Park.
Yeah, so thank you guys all for being here. You really are some of my favorite people. So I think this will be, you know, despite the topic, let's have a good time. So Avril, you know, there's been so many devastating moments for filmmakers in the last several weeks, but I just can't imagine, you know, anything greater than having to shut down your production halfway through. So why don't you tell us a bit about what that process was like, you know, how you were weighing that decision before the state issued the stay-at-home order, And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about, what now, what next, how do you get back up and running?
Yeah. So you see me shaking my head because every now and then I'm still I'm still in shock and like depressed about it. But yeah, it's interesting because, we've all been in production before and we know how we get into production bubble, what I call production bubble, where, you're just so focused on what you're doing and so focused on filming that you're kind of oblivious to what's going on in the outside world. And we weren't oblivious to it. We knew that something was going on, but we were having a completely different experience of it in Oklahoma. So I was starting to get so we started filming in, I think, the end of February. Like, the days are running together now. Everything feels so long ago. But we started filming like the end of February, and slowly we started hearing about things, and I was getting text messages from friends in LA about what was going on. And at first it's just like, oh, it's terrible. Let's keep going, and then it starts to close in on you. The coronavirus was starting to close in on production. We were just starting to hear more reports about it, and people, cast, crew, everybody was starting to get more and more concerned. And the more we started hearing reports, and like I said, my friends in LA were texting me about what was going on. And then so we started kind of, issuing, wearing gloves at craft services, and like our caterers were wearing gloves and like hand sanitizer, putting that everywhere. People started wearing, on a film set in the middle of winter in Oklahoma, a lot of people, are like coughing. It's like, well, what do you have? We're like making people wear masks and things like that. And really it all came down to, we were on a Tuesday through Saturday schedule. On Saturday, we left set like, all right, everybody, see you Tuesday. And, we were still thinking about, okay, what can we do to increase like our, the cleanliness on set and things like that. And really, it just all literally within hours, it all just came to an abrupt halt. We got an email from the governor of Oklahoma, who issued a state of emergency in Oklahoma, saying that there were to be no more gatherings more than 50 people. And obviously our crew alone is more than that. And they were also revoking permits. They were revoking special permits. And so that particular week that we were about to shoot, we already had a number of challenges due to coronavirus. One of them being that we had some cast members that were supposed to fly back into Oklahoma from LA. And, they were like, we don't want to get on planes. And, I don't blame you. So we kind of had to figure out what was going to be the workaround for those cast members that weren't going to be coming back. And then we also, we were supposed to shoot in a nursing home that week as well. And they all of a sudden went silent. And we're like, we're the last thing on their mind right now. So we already had to do a workaround for that as well. So we were already having to make all these adjustments. So when we got that email from the governor, it just kind of was the final, stop for us. And literally within hours, it just became like, we have to shut down. We have to, we had our art department was supposed to go to one of the, locations the following day to set up. So we're kind of like, if we're going to shut this down, we have to do it now before, work starts on something completely new. So yeah, like within hours, we just had to make a decision of whether or not to shut down. And, obviously, safety was one of the biggest concerns, but then there's also the concern of like how to get people home. We had people from LA, from New York, from Atlanta, from Texas, like we have people from, a lot of different states. And so it's a matter of like, how do we get all these people home safely and quickly? And all of our departments had to wrap out prematurely. Like we didn't, we were just like, everything is just so up in the air. Like we can't even make projections on like what to do. And in Oklahoma, they had their order was until April 12th. So they were like revoking permits until April 12th. And so at the time we were like, well, let's just like put our stake, flag in the sand. And let's just say we're coming back April 13th, just so people have that date in their minds. And so that's what we did. We put everything on hold. We shut down everything. We had to return trucks. We had to, like I said, our department heads had to wrap out. and we sent everybody home. And it was so bizarre. Like I mean, within 2 days I was on, and I couldn't make the drive back from Oklahoma to LA. It was just, it was that weighing back and forth, like, do I drive? Do I fly? I don't know. And I was just like, I can't do those long trips anymore. It would take me a whole week to get home if I were to drive. So I'm just gonna like cover myself from head to toe and get on a plane, get on the fastest plane I can to get to LA. And, when I first got home, I was, and honestly, I probably could have come home sooner, but I was shell shocked. I was like, I can't believe, like, now I'm expected to pack up. Like, I totally was not, I can't even wrap my brain around putting my stuff in a suitcase and packing up and leaving, especially when we're not done. Like, this production is not even done. Like, I can't even wrap my brain around that. And so I stayed, and it got to a point where I was like, if I stay around any longer, I'm just going to be like moping around the office. Like, I'm just going to be in the production office. Like, so, I left, and like, even when I came back, it was like a good week before I was able to just even like function in my own house. It was the shock of having to shut down a production when I wasn't expecting to have to do that. But then also it's like you're thrust out of production bubble and thrown into a pandemic. And I'm like, so it's like I come home and like there's no toilet paper and there's no food and there's like, what? Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what's going on. And I felt like, and this may not be true. The more I talk to people, like talk to my friends and stuff, but the way I felt was that everybody else here had already been kind of in a week of this or whatever, and had been through the shock of it, and we're now kind of dealing with how to cope with it. And so I kind of felt like everybody else was kind of moving on, and I was still just like in my living room for days, like, what just happened? So I felt really out of sorts. Like, I just don't know what to do with this. And it's still very much a challenge because it's still the unknown. And like that April 12th date is obviously not gonna happen. I mean, and the dates change, and there's also, different information between what Oklahoma is doing versus what LA is doing versus what New York is doing. And knowing that we have all these people in different places, it puts us in this position of like, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know, just how to move forward. It's a very unsettling feeling. And I even now, even though I've kind of moved past that shell shock to an extent, I mean, I don't know how much I can move past it, but I still think about that fact that we have this movie sitting out there that like we have to finish at some point. Like, we have investors that have given us money to make this movie, and so we have to finish it at some point. But I can't. But and for a producer that's so, as producers, that's what we do. It's like we plan and we make projections and we think like this is what's going to happen, or at least we try as much as we can. And even as producers, we know that our plans are always, subject to not happening. But like to be this much out of control is like just mind-boggling.
Well, and I think it really raises an interesting point for all producers of like, we know safety is our responsibility, but you really this really pushed your responsibility as a producer to a level that you've probably never experienced with safety on set. And so it's just, for producers to really think about our role, those decisions, until the state ordered it, those decisions were really in your hands, which is a lot of pressure. I'm curious to know, at this stage, how are you working with crew and cast and your financiers about getting up and running in terms of not knowing those dates and the uncertainty of it? Like, do you keep everyone hold? Can you? And I'm also curious if you've dealt with insurance at all at any point yet, and if that covers anything for what's happening.
Yeah, we put in a claim to our insurance company under civil authority. So we're waiting to hear back. Like we've talked to them and kind of given them, just kind of given them, this is the state of things. This is how we left things. And this is what we did, like once we heard the order, and this is kind of how it affected us. So we're still waiting to hear back. So I don't know what's going to happen with that claim as far as our insurance is concerned. we're remaining hopeful, because that is an extra cost, especially for a lower budget film where you're like scraping, you're pinching pennies in every place, and now we have like this extra additional travel that we didn't anticipate, and so hopefully there'll be something from the insurance company that can help us with that and help us get back on track. And I mean, honestly, in terms of getting back, it's like, it's a waiting game for everybody involved. It's a waiting game. And, we've had some conversations. I've had some conversations with other producers about, what's going to be, what is the criteria for going back, right? And so like I've had this conversation with other producers at large, but then also with our team, like, what is the criteria? Because initially that was, okay, Oklahoma lists theirs on April 12th. So we're going back April 13th. But like, there's so many other considerations you have to take with that. And it's like, like I said, we have to, what are the orders in LA? What are the orders in New York? And what is the CDC saying, and, even, we're talking about things like, just the conversations that we're having is like, what do we do when that time does come to, that this starts to lift and things start getting back to normal? Then it's like, do we test people on set? But like, testing is so hard to come by. It's like, is that realistic to think that we're going to have testing available for everybody on set? Do we have 2 medics available? That maybe we do 2 medics and we take everybody's temperature every day. We just don't know. And part of it is because like, we don't know the timeline of when this will lift, but also we don't know the specifics of this virus either. Like, there's still so many unknowns with it. And so even just we're just having conversations about what's going to be the most useful and what's going to be the most helpful to getting us back on track. And also for people to feel safe to come back. Because that's the other thing too. It's like, Oklahoma can lift the order all they want, but like, are people going to feel safe getting on a plane or getting in a car, driving across country to come back to be on a film crew to shoot? Like, that's a huge consideration. It's like what we consider to be safe. And so it's kind of a waiting game on everybody's part. Like right now, everybody's just kind of like, we're just having those conversations, but we don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Can I talk about just this for the whole webinar? I think I probably bite off more than we can chew in one conversation, but thank you for sharing that. I know it's been really, just knowing you as a friend, I know it's been really challenging for you, and it's hard. And like I said, everyone's kind of turning to you as the producer to make these decisions, but it's like the responsibility of your film and keeping everyone safe is a lot to handle. So moving to Kelly, moving over to the festival space, you had your films premiering. The films you had premiering at the festivals were also films without distribution. And so I'm wondering if you could talk about the effect the loss of festivals have had on the sales process, on the filmmaking team. How are your sales agents getting your film in front of distributors, press, like all the things that have to do with films that were supposed to be at the festivals?
The whole thing. First of all, I think the description of this panel should have just been that shrugging shoulder emoji. It's like,
I should have. You're right.
That's it. Just that. But none of this is black and white. It's just everything is just. We're just trying to figure it out and take it day to day. We had a feature in, I'll start with I Used to Go Here, which, was supposed to play South by Southwest. And, that's a film that we're in the midst of trying to sell it. But there's still that fear that we're not going to get that public screening. I know it's just really important to Chris Ray, the director. And this has been such a labor of love for her for so long. And I know her heart was totally broken that we didn't get to play it for an audience, And so when that announcement happened, we scrambled to show it to potential buyers and things like that. And then the ordinance went out about no more than 10 people. So that kind of went out the window too. So then it kind of went to aggressively sharing links with potential buyers and whatnot. And hopefully, that's a film that we'll get out there. It will get out there. I just hope that, Chris can get that screening, with a big audience eventually, sooner than later. And And with, with No Future, it's a little bit different. It's a totally different movie. It's a very serious drama about, grief and addiction. And so, and I come from a film festival background as a film programmer for over a decade. And I know premiering at a festival is really important to myself and Jonathan, as well as like the other producers and the rest of the team. The directors were really they were ecstatic about premiering at Tribeca. And, hopefully, that's something we want to, ideally find that opportunity down the road to really launch it from a film festival and give it, a more public screening. And maybe that's through Tribeca, maybe it's another festival, I'm not sure. But, that's the big goal with that. And so, but with I Used to Go Here, it's being a little bit more aggressive right now in the moment. Our sales agents are. So.
Do you feel like we all deal with sharing links to sell our films, like it's part of the process, in any film festival, but it just worries me that so many, like everyone, like that there's not the first opportunity to see it in a theater. Does it feel organized or chaotic or like?
I think right now it still feels a little organized, because we know who's got it and who's seeing it, but yeah, it's such a different beast, but I think something that this has shown, to me at least, is that it's a reminder of how important film festivals can be really for a lot of filmmakers, and how it really can establish them as filmmakers, not just get their film out there, so it's like, I'm really sort of worried about how that's affecting.
Well, actually I have a counterpoint. I was going to ask this later, but because you bring this up, I was going to say, like, it's kind of a controversial thing, but distributors are so reliant on the festivals for stamp of approval and to validate and to curate, to a point where I think they've kind of become codependent. And so is there any upside to some of this shaking out in any way? Or is it really, is it what you said, that we really do need these festivals to be doing this work?
I mean, me, coming from a festival background, I'm pretty pro film festival in that sense. But yeah, I think I do think we still need festivals. I think like I said, it's really important for first, second time filmmakers whose work hasn't been seen to a wide audience, that it's a good launching point. Mm-hmm. It's really important to go from there, I think, for a lot of films, a lot of indie films.
I know a lot of the viewers today, have shorts, for example, and you had a short as well. And I'm wondering what you would do if you had, let's say you had a short film now that like hadn't gotten into a festival yet or was supposed to, like, do you wait for another festival? Do you just put it out in the world? What about the films that are completed, but now all these festivals are canceling and we don't know what festivals next year look like?
Right. It's hard to say with a short film. I think a lot of times I would probably go ahead and try to get an audience for it and get it on the internet. But I think with Rules for Werewolves, that's part of, that's a precursor to a feature we're developing that we originally hope to shoot at the end of this year, probably 2021 now. But so that's something I think now we're sort of stepping back with that and holding on to it a little bit, and also possibly looking for some other place to launch that closer to when we make the feature. So it's a little bit different beast, so to speak, since it's called Werewolves. But I think if I had a comedy particularly on my hands right now, I would get that on the internet.
Yeah.
I would try to launch that in a special way, whether it's through South by Southwest or through any other festival that's doing a lot of online screening opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Great. Effie, so I'm interested in your answer too, because this pertains to a lot of work I'm doing, because I'm very much in development and financing. And, you just stepped into the role of CEO, you're managing a fund, you're accepting projects. And I think there's just, I would love to hear what you're feeling in terms of any, stalling of projects because financing is happening or is not happening. People with money are worried about their money. And so in that stage, like for those of us who were raising money and maybe close to finishing our raising money, to me, it feels like it's kind of stopped, but I'm curious, what you're thinking in that space.
Got it. First, I just want to say, how exciting is it that like people from all over the world are watching? Are you guys like, okay, I know, I'm just going to have that.
It's a lot of people.
I have a feeling I'm going to be like the lame, like happy one. It's going to be okay. I've always stood alone. I'll make it happen. Like from Mumbai, I'm like, yes. You know what I mean? Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. Pulling it together. Can you tell that I'm lonely and I've been by myself for 3 weeks in my house?
Also, all four of us live by ourselves.
Yeah,
all four of us live by ourselves.
It's probably a good idea you didn't do this next week. We would all.
Yeah.
That's true.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Anyway, so I just want to say, like, I'm so happy to be doing this. I'm so like happy just for this type of connection that we're able to have as producers and still content creators and still making things happen. Look, here's what I'm feeling. And maybe it's, you know, I don't know, maybe because I feel like I'm a little older, but I'm just like, this too shall pass, you know? I keep thinking about last year where I thought like, oh my God, the biggest problems that I had were last year. And like, how am I going to get through it? And then you get through it. And then now this year, you're like, well, this is bigger. And like, if I only had the problem that I had last year, I'd be all right. You know, granted, you know, and I'm talking about this from a perspective of I'm healthy. My immediate circle is healthy. I'm able to sort of self-quarantine. So I'm kind of coming from that place. And I know that, and I recognize and understand there's people who are not. So like, no harm, no foul. I just want to bring that up there. But here's the thing. In times of struggle, in times like if you look at the Great Depression even, what succeeded? What thrived? Film, storytelling, because people needed to get the hell out of and people need movies and storytelling to escape and to connect. And this is a prime time for that. So I feel everything that I'm saying is coming from a bit more of a heartened place than like, oh no. Granted, both of the films that we put money into are in post right now. So I can be, you know what I mean? I don't have Avril, girl. Woo! Woo! I hear you, girl. Where you're like, I'm just going to be walking. And it felt like Grey Gardens, like when you're like in your production outfit, just sort of roaming around. I was like, oh, my love. Like, I'm sorry. Just like, where do I go? Eating? Anybody? Eating? So exactly. So like, I feel you. And I understand. Like, but anyway, but going back to answering the question, because I just go off on a big tangent. Sorry. We're actually okay. You know, Game Changer isn't just for, I just want to just do a quick correction. Game Changer isn't just for women. It's for people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, as well as women, and making movies, particularly sort of with the bend through thriller, action, sci-fi, horror through that lens. So we've actually, were able to participate in financing of 2 movies. We're literally getting ready to go into production on a movie, I'm going to say late summer. And then we're talking about, because I have to act as if, right? You know what I mean? I have to act as if. The money that we've had, and I'm so grateful. Now, this is someone like, I live, you know, y'all know me, like humble beginnings. Do you know what I mean? Like I went broke doing like Dear White People. Like, you know, I tell this story often of like, I've never had like a lot of money. I've always been on the come up in that struggle. And this time, you know, having a piece of a job, you know, which is nice. And I'm actually looking to hire, right? Which is, you know, also saying something. But the financiers that we have thus far are staying strong. What's unfortunate is I'm still looking to build more funding and more of a fundraise. But the people that we're talking to, I mean, they might be doing a bit of a pause, but I think it's gonna come back strong because unlike, and remember, I mean, y'all were too, I mean, we're all grown folks. Remember the 2008, you know, that thing was totally different. That was like an economic collapse because of like the mortgages. This is something different. People have the money, want to go out and spend, but we can't because we're going to get sick and, you know, fall apart. I think that once they find the testing, I think it'll be on. I think our problem is going to be, remember when we thought we didn't know when we're going to shoot? We're going to be able to shoot and we're going to be like, shit, everybody's shooting at the same time now. What do we do? And it's that's going to be our next biggest problem, you know? So anyway, I guess that's sort of the long and the short of it. We're actually this is a beautiful time for development. I'm actually kind of in love with the fact that I get to pause and read the scripts, actually call the people that like, and I told my friends with my job, I was like, I'm going to be a shitty friend right now because I'm trying to keep my head above water and like, you know what I mean? And be like, I'm going to call that friend shit. Like, just know I'll be good for it in a little bit. Now I'm able to come back and be like, yes, I'll read your script. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's have the Zoom call. Like, so it's good. And also, let's not sleep on TV. Let's not sleep on that. And I know, and I'm going to just say this, and people are going to be a little bent out of shape. I personally have felt that the theatrical system, it's been on its way out for a little while, people. I don't care what anyone says. It's been on its way out for a while. I don't know when the last time you've got a dividend check. Or when you got anything from a film that you did, we don't make money, the distributors make money, okay? So I do miss the festival. I think there'll be a time, remember it's escape and connection. There'll be a way for us to go, but everybody in my opinion, I think it's about, everybody needs to make friends with that streamer. Everybody needs to, you know what I mean? Don't get it as a producer. I'm looking for a connect to Quibi. I don't mind putting myself out there. Who's got to connect to Quibi? And I need, all of those places and like all those channel and branding. Anyway, I'm rambling, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, and all of us are kind of in that space. So Avril, I'm curious, I know you have projects in development as well that you're trying to now get into some of that headspace. How are you feeling in terms of going out with projects? And also, a lot of people have been asking about what is the right approach? Like, how do we be sensitive to the fact that maybe all 4 of us are at home without any kids, so our lives are different?
God, huh? Shout out to like women who decide to be and men to be child free. Yes.
But so like I think that we have a different anxiety because we need to read, like we need to keep busy and keep our projects going, but not everyone on the receiving end, is in the same place, and so. Just also sensitivities about approach and aggressiveness. And I'm just curious, like for those projects, how are you feeling there?
I mean, I'm probably overly sensitive about it. I'm like, I don't want to contact anybody. I don't want to ask anybody for anything right now. I'm just like, and because even I have projects that I do have two other projects that are completed. That I'm going, okay, these films they're edited, they're done, they're like ready to go into the marketplace. So I don't need to ask anyone for money to finish the film. I don't need a timeline, to finish the film and bring crew back to another state to finish the film. They're done. And so we're already talking about, getting those films out into the world, and and those conversations are going. They're going on business as usual, which gives me, the hope that people are still working. It gives me that possibility that like people are still working and people are still looking for content. And it's like you were saying, Effie, it's like this will lift at some point and we'll get through it and we'll go on. So that makes me feel good. But yeah, when it comes to things that are in development, I have a couple of projects. I have a couple of projects that are in different phases of development, and like, the ones that are in the earlier state, like I said, I'm just like, I don't want to ask anybody for anything right now. I don't know if that's appropriate. But then I have projects that are a little further into development, and we're still having those conversations because we had some dates set, and we had, there were some things that were already in motion. And so we're continuing those conversations and we're going. I think for me, it's just kind of just a matter of time of like grafting all those projects in and resuming work and resuming, the push on those projects, just like the other ones. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like I am just trying, I'm playing it very delicately, because also other people that I talk to, other producers, other people that I'm on the phone with, and so on and so forth, it varies. Like everybody handles things differently, and there are some people, like even on the distribution end, there are some companies that it takes them longer than usual to respond, and I have to be, and I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that like these people are, we got on the phone with one woman, one distributor the other day, and she's working from home. So she's like, I'm coping, like I'm trying to make it, the best I can. So yeah, it's like the responses may take a little longer than they typically would. But there are people that are still looking for stuff and are still working. And so, it's coping with the reality of the situation, trying to stay productive, but then also just trying to like personally take care of ourselves too, and trying to hold both of those things in tension.
Yeah, I think it's being aware of it. I received just an unsolicited email from somebody about their script, and normally, honestly, I write back to almost everybody, just even if it's like I'm not looking. I know.
How nice you are. I'm like,
this guy. I worked in development. My boss used to make me, so like I'm conditioned to do it. But somebody emailed me and it was just like the pitch, the log line, and nothing. I'm like, at least acknowledge that maybe you're not reading right now. I know this is a weird time, but I'm just trying to keep my stuff going. There was like no acknowledgement of it. So I feel like it's just really about also when you do reach out, acknowledge it at the start, ask, you know, and just be aware of it for every person. Because like you said, it is going to change with everybody. And Effie, I'll go back. I think I'm probably going to have to do a whole another conversation about theatrical. So I acknowledge that point too, though. And I think that's so much that we haven't wrapped our head around yet.
Just to sort of pipe just really quickly, like, I think that, and I don't know, Kelly, you might feel the same way too, of like, you can be everybody. The beautiful thing about what's happening right now in this horrible time is that it is affecting everyone. For once, we are all in the same boat, right? For once, this is our common connection, right, with everyone. So it's sort of easier to have a communication with someone, because it's like, how are you doing? Do you have somebody else in your house? Do you want, you know what I mean? There's something like, are you gonna, like, I'll need to check in on you. Just, there's things that you can, you know, that you can do. Yeah. But also, and this is where I have, and that's why I love that I'm surrounded by you good people, because like on the one hand, I have like, Effie, be a good human. Yeah. And then I have opportunistic where I'm like, I know every actor is at home right now trying to figure out their life. I know, you know what I mean, with nothing to do. I know that a lot of the agencies have laid off and furloughed people. So I know that like I can start getting into those conversations because now people are needing to justify their jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like there's things where it's like, I know it sounds really sort of ambitious and shitty, but it also is that thing of like, a closed mouth doesn't get fed, you know what I mean? And you don't have to be an ass to be like, read my shit, you know what I mean? You could, you know, you have that connection, you know what I mean, first, and then to be like, hey, is now a good time, but I'm gonna gently nudge you about that thing that we were talked about, that offer that so-and-so, like, what's going on with that? Like half that, you know, company just fell apart, you know what I mean? You get to like sort of almost resurrect a few things.
Yeah, but it's a thin line. You got to walk there, right? Like, but yeah, it's
right.
totally true.
Walk thin lines. You're good.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to say, because I've been hearing, you know, writer friends of mine, director friends going out on pitches via Zoom, and development or people reading. But let's be honest, like producers don't get paid for development. So while it helps our projects,
yeah, that's true.
It puts me in a place where, like, yes, I feel better because something's moving, but it doesn't help the immediate of, I'm not getting a paycheck until I'm in hard pre-production. So
yeah, how am I going to pay my rent for that?
Yeah, and so like, I don't know that anyone's going to have this answer, but what is there anything we can be doing or creating in the meantime? I mean, obviously, luckily, unemployment passed, so gig workers, like freelance, were finally counted, so that's huge if you didn't know that. But I mean, Kelly, do you have anything to add about that?
Not really. I mean, it's you know, it's still kind of one of these, right? You know, but it's just like, we'll see. That'll shake out, I feel like, in the next, hopefully, week or so, like the best, you know, as far as like unemployment and everything. But like I don't know. I mean, for me right now, sort of to kind of play off what we've been talking about is like, you know, for Jonathan and I, we have film and post that just wrapped in January. So that's great. And that now has plenty of time to work on, called Mark and Mary and some other people by Hannah Marks. And then we had, you know, a few projects like kind of ready to go. All That We Love, film by Yin Tan that I'm working on with Rebecca. And then another film called Standby for Pamela Ribbon, the director. And
I love her. She's great.
Yeah, it's a great script.
Good job on that. Yeah.
Thank you. And but you know, those are two things, and another project called Who's Sorry Now that, you know, like we really wanted to, you know, try to get those done this year. So in a way, like I feel like a big chunk of the day is just talking about, okay, how can we be ready? You know, how can we be prepared when it is time, when you know, how can we come out swinging from our corner when the bell rings, you know, and be ready, but also be safe and also like know exactly how to do things. And I think with limitations comes creativity. So, you know, I think there's going to have to be this, you know, we're looking at, you know, the films that we want to make, and it's like, is there a different way we could make these? You know, could we do this with a crew of 10? Could we do it like Romero used to make movies in the 80s, you know, where it was just like, you know, it's like he had a crew of like 6 or 8 people and then a couple actors, and like, can we do that? You know, and just take longer to shoot it, you know, just to, you know, cause, yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, like I was thinking the same thing of like, I wonder if IATSE is going to come off of the minimum crew, right? The minimum staffing, right? Because if you could, sorry, did I cut you off, Kelly?
No, go. You're playing off what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I feel that like if we could, when we get back, and I'm like, look, yo, you guys, we can do like rapid testing for like 20 people at a time. Dope. That's great. We can go and make a movie. Do you know how like how much also streamlined it's going to be, especially for our type of movies to be, you know what I mean? Like if you're not doing like a massive visual effects thing with like Will Smith, I don't know what to say, but I'm not doing those movies. But being able to be lean and like, I'm excited about that. Like that's one of the things I'm looking forward to see how to sort of break open our mind. Like I think it's just time to like stop this paradigm that we've been sort of entrenched in, you know what I mean? This sort of like, this is how we make movies. To be like, we can do it like, you know, there's all different types of ways. And now and I think we as independent filmmakers might have a leg up because we know how to do a lot with a little. Like those big dogs don't, you know what I mean? So like, that's why I'm also like, this is our time, people.
And sometimes it's way more fun that way too, right?
So. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
How you feeling, Avril? You feeling it? You feeling?
No.
Well, actually,
bitch, are you still talking?
Here's an interesting question for you, though, Avril. Like the way I've been thinking about it, and Kelly and I were talking about this the other day. It's just what if they start releasing things the opposite? So now you can have 10 people gather, then you can have 20 and 40. Like, do you regroup and find a different way to make your movie, like, or do you wait until your 100 people can gather again? Like that's something you maybe not have thought about yet.
I think it's something to consider. And I mean, even when we got the order from Oklahoma, that's something we turned over, albeit briefly, because we didn't feel like we had a lot of time to sit and to mull over a decision. Like we kind of had to act fast, but it is something that we thought about, like, can we do this with a smaller crew, and we already felt like the crew that we had was already nimble, was already small. Like we already had holes. But it's something to think about. And I think that in our case, like with this particular production, I think it would take a lot more conversation. It would take a lot more in-depth conversations because there's just a lot involved with this particular story in particular. But I do think that, it's an interesting question, and you're right. Like, I come from a background of doing super low budget, nimble crew. Like that's my kind of, that's my, whatever you call it. I don't know, whatever the
your jam.
My jam. That's my jam. That's my jam. That's my background of just like making something with nothing, with whatever you have and whoever you have. And, maybe we're going to have to go back to that mentality. I think, a lot of times as independent producers and, you're trying to like move up in the ranks, and it's like, I want to do this with these many people. And like I have, positions that I've never had before. You know what I mean? Like I'm not used to having, all of these different crew positions. Like that typically has not been my, experience like in the past. You try to move up and like do things, but maybe our mentality has to kind of go back to what that was and figure out a way to elevate that and still make quality movies. But like, how can we just be super nimble and still make good content? So I think it's something to think about and something to consider. Even with this production, like I said, initially when we thought about it, we felt like our crew was already too small. So the thought of reducing it even more so was kind of like, I don't know if that's going to work, but maybe it's something worth revisiting.
Yeah. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot. And my friend Joe actually sent this question to me too, which was, I'm curious, maybe Effie, start with you, but I'd like to ask all of you the same question of, I read a script the other day for someone that I mentor, and it was just a really dark, heavy indie, and I was honest with them, like, this is really hard to get through right now, right? Because it's just where the world is. And I'm wondering if you're rethinking the types of films audiences are going to want when we come out of this. And you think like, and when somebody in the Q&As pointed out, like, after the Great Depression was some of the best musicals came about, and like different, are you thinking about that in terms of what you think audiences are going to want, and maybe what you have now isn't necessarily something that's going to work down the road?
I feel people are going to want, I keep saying, beating a dead horse, they're going to want connection, and they're going to want a little escape. Whereas, this is going to be, excuse the pun, but like a game changer. The world will be different after this. We will, we will be used to wearing masks we will be used to like making sure that we have enough food in our refrigerator to like hold down if need be. We are going to get a little bit more self-disciplined about working alone. You know what I mean? Like that's just what it's going to be. I don't know if I would do another Contagion. You know what I mean? Or a movie right now. I don't know about that, but I do feel that people, because the lessons that we're going to learn during this time of not being like, you know, like, why aren't people social distancing? Why are, you know, the young people being like, fuck it, I'm a live, you know what I mean? Old people wiping you out, you know, culling, you know what I mean? But like the sort of underlying themes of like what we're going through right now, I can see that being resonated in television and films. I feel that like in this time, I mean, I've always been a genre head. I think horror will actually probably be great because it's something that has nothing to do right now, really, you know what I mean? Like, a slasher film, like maybe the Freddy Kruegers, the Friday the 13th, like those sorts of things might come out. I think people are going to want to see like the little guy triumph, you know, or little woman, you know, triumph, you know what I mean? But you know, I think, I just really feel that people are going to want to really connect. And I think it's going to be maybe another conversation for another day of people building community around the types of films. Like, I think that when people have movies that are ready to come out, it's going to be so much more that social impact and connection marketing side of it all. It's really it's going to be like, whereas before it used to be an afterthought, now it's going to be, I think, a leading factor. That's my feeling. What do y'all think?
Kelly, what do you think?
I totally agree with that. I think, you know, that aspect of it, building a community around your project, is something we always talk about doing when we're promoting something, but it's always, yeah, you're exactly right. I think it's an afterthought. And so I think now it's like, we've got to be thinking about that up front, no matter what kind of movie we're making in a way, except maybe a horror film. But yeah, I think you're right. I think people are going to be, you know, I think people are going to be drawn to genre films more, probably, and pure escapism really for a little while.
Yeah.
But, you know, but I feel like everything we're working on still holds up.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yeah.
And we've been working on them so long. Can't let them go.
You can't let it go now.
Can't let them go now. No way.
There's that problem too, though, is that, yeah, it's like, well, would I, give it up? Avril, how do you feel about that question?
You know, it's interesting because like one of the films that, one of the completed films I have is it's like, it's a pretty heavy drama. And like, that's a conversation we've been having is like, you know, on the one hand, you know, it was funny because, you know, we've been leaving each other messages and one message is like, this is a great time for us because people are at home and they're watching movies and like, we can get this out there. And then the next one is like, but I don't think people want to see a heavy drama right now. Like, people want to laugh. You know, but what is interesting is that, you know, as we're, with this particular film, we're going the self-distribution route. And so we are, you know, we're already kind of experimenting with those, you know, we talk about like community engagement and things like that. We were already having those conversations and now it's been, you know, it's even heightened in the midst of this. And also thinking about like, you know, how does coronavirus affect those like communal experiences that we were planning to have, you know, that's like, you know, community outreach kind of type of screenings. How do we build that same kind of community online? So it's, you know, it's interesting too, even just seeing how people on social media are like, I'm watching such and such. Anybody want to watch it with, like they're doing like virtual parties or whatever and watching things together. And even if they're not watching it together, like the amount of, you know, discussion about Tiger King, you know what I mean? Like people are having these experiences, you know, where they're watching things together. And we've been doing that even before coronavirus, but it's like, it's just interesting to see how this affects our decisions as filmmakers on the timing of, you know, how we roll things out, even for a, you know, a sad indie drama. It's like, we're having the, you know, we're really thinking about like, I don't know, it's just a different conversation. It's a heightened conversation of like, how do we be smart about how we roll this out and who we roll this out to, like who that audience is. I just always feel like there's an audience for everything, you know? And so like, as much, you know, we had this conversation yesterday. I'm like, as much as I agree, like, yeah, people want escapism and people want comedies and things like that. I am such a melancholy person. Like, I've been sitting on the couch, like watching, like Ozark isn't exactly the most happy series. And I'm like, I'm like all in.
It's about women in business. That's what it's about. You know
You
what I mean?
know, you know, but people find things to like get out of something that, you know, that you wouldn't necessarily pull out. Like, it's not a comedy on the surface, but there's other things that people pull out of it. So I just always think that there's something for everybody. Everybody likes something. So just
Totally.
Absolutely.
push forward, you know.
Another question for all of you is about productivity, right? So there's, you know, the very early in quarantine, the first tweet of was Shakespeare wrote King Lear, right, during quarantine, and like this idea that we have to be getting out there and getting our projects going and writing the next best script. And, you know, someone said, you know, there was I live in Detroit, and there was a post that like, no, this isn't a snow day. Like this is something completely different, and that there's just so much to process. And there's just like such an emotional toll happening on so many levels. And so I would love to hear each of your thoughts on productivity. I personally am on the side of do what you can to keep your projects moving forward, take care of yourself. But I also then really start to get nervous about my bank account depleting and my projects not moving forward. So like, how can our viewers here find that balance? Kelly, do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, I can. I think, you know, for me, like keeping momentum going with these projects that we've been working on, like I said, for so long, like actually gives me sort of a positive feeling, you know, in this very sort of negative time. And so, yeah, you know, working, I do think you can work too much right now. Like, I think you could, you know, I could sit and probably read scripts and return emails and work for 12 hours a day if I wanted to, but I also don't think that's super healthy right now. But that productivity does help and keeps me optimistic. You know, I think, you know, Rebecca, you and I were talking about how some days just feel pessimistic. Like you wake up and you're just like, oh God, this thing, you know, what's going to happen? And, you know, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to get these projects made? But really ultimately, you know, luckily it's striving to have more optimistic days than pessimistic days. Yeah. And sometimes being productive, you know, in any form, whether that's finishing a puzzle or actually getting work done, like that to me is like, you know, key right now. Yeah.
Effie?
Quickly, not really. Self-care is productivity. So that's first and foremost. I mean, I'm just going to get real because that's what I do. You know, bathing every day and putting on a bra, that's a fucking win. That's a win. You know what I mean? Like, so let's just be real, but I'm very happy to be here today with lipstick and a bra and, you know, I'm not getting up. But anyway, but like also, you know, and it's important, I think that I do a lot of meditation. I meditate. That's the thing you got. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, spinning out about like, cause you know, what am I doing? What is this? Well, not doing enough. I'm at home. I can't be what, you know, it's like meditation has really centered myself. Doing I'm just going to get morning pages is also really helpful. Just sort of get your mind, body, and spirit together. I have not started exercising at all. I'm eating my fucking feelings. I've got, not lying, like really eating my feelings, you know, so I'm not perfect. And then also, like literally, we were laughing about this before, like, you know, I make like little face masks. Like I literally sew and I make DIY hand sanitizer. In addition to reading scripts, watching things, you have to do, I mean, I don't know about you, but being fully engaged in different parts, because you can't work all the time because you couldn't do it when you're going into an office, and you can't do it now because your office is the couch.
Yeah, now's a good time to finally take the shrink wrap off that Tybo DVD I bought 20 years ago, right?
I'm getting so fat, my ankles are hurting. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not lying to you. It's real.
Avril, how are you managing productivity?
You know, one thing that this whole thing has taught me is listening to myself and listening to my body, which I have not been in the habit of doing. I feel like, you know, prior to this, I've just been to go all the time. Like I eat out of drive-thrus and packaged foods, and like and like this has forced me to like be home, cook my food, and like plan out meals, and, you know, and eat and rest, you know, and to just listen to that. And I feel like it you know, it does kind of provide the motivation I need, you know, on the back end, because it ebbs and flows. Because there are days, like you mentioned, there are days where I'm just like, this is just too much. I just can't. Like, I just want to lay in bed. And even like giving myself the permission to be like, okay, then do that today.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I wouldn't even do that. It was like, I gotta go. Even though I feel terrible, like I gotta go. And it's like, just relax for a minute. Take the time that you need. Also, community has been really important. It's so funny. I think, you know, in me saying that, like, I remember, I think it was last week, I put this posting on Facebook about how, like, I hate phone calls, which I do, but at the same time.
And then I called you right after.
And then you called me right after. So I'm like, I'm so glad I have some friends who know to ignore me. But I do. It's not my favorite thing in the world to talk on the phone, but it does help. It helps to talk to other people who are going through this and other producers who are in this position and talk it through, and just, you know, kind of commiserate in that regard. I have a couple of groups that I'm a part of, you know, just like producer groups and other groups that we just chat and just talk about how are you feeling. It's just like check-ins, you know. And so those have been really helpful. The producer ones have been super helpful because we talk both about the emotional element of things, but then we also talk about kind of like industry-wide, like where are you, and like what are you hearing, what's the word on the street, what have you heard from sales agents, and what do you know. So that helps too, and helps kind of keep the ball rolling on the projects that I do have. And you know, just like I said, that communal aspect is a big part of what's keeping me going.
Yeah. Well, and that actually was always my last question in interviews. I was going to ask each of you, what is the thing that keeps you going right now? Effie or Kelly?
Kelly, go. I talk too much. Go ahead.
Oh gosh, what's keeping me going? I mean, honestly, it's coming out on the other side of this thing. You know, it's like it's really like, I'm super excited to make these movies we've been working on, and now that everything's sort of, the brakes have been pumped, it's frustrating. So like, it's just being optimistic and looking forward, looking to the future, and like really kind of imagining that day that we're finally making these films. That kind of keeps me going. You know, that and pacing. The pace around my apartment a lot.
Effie?
Honestly, the thing that keeps me going, and this is going to sound a little whatever, it's my truth. I know that this too shall pass. It'll pass. Change is the only thing that we can count on, period. And I think that, you know, and I'll get on my soapbox, now is when we find out what type of a human being we really are. You don't find out this shit when things are great and like things are up top. This is like, are you kind? Are you compassionate? Are you watching out for your neighbor? Are you, you know what I mean? Like this, like, are you being, you know, reading someone's script, even though it might not be for you, but giving them notes and, you know what I mean? A little bit of love, because it just takes a little bit of kindness that can really make someone's day. So I actually, it's weird. I feel like this is a moment where I get to test like my litmus test of like, am I becoming the woman I want to be?
That's really lovely.
I know, right? I know, really. I'm like, I'm a bitter woman, and I'm like, sorry, I don't know, but
that's what eating all the snacks you want does. Like, it makes you a better woman.
I'm going to be a very big woman.
I'm gonna wrap up. It was unless
April, you don't get to tell. April doesn't.
Oh, was she? No, go ahead. I thought she
already
with my question.
All right, forget it then.
Community was her answer, so it's keeping her going. Yeah, I know she segued it perfectly for me. That's why I didn't know her. There, you know, I know there's a lot of questions that aren't answered yet. I think we kind of hopefully encompass them all. I could talk to you guys forever. I love you dearly. Thank you for doing this. If we could all clap, if all the people could clap, I know they'd be clapping very loudly for you. I think, you know, I do want to do more of these. Like I said at the beginning, if you missed it, this is just, I just do this in my volunteer time. If each of you donate $1, that helps me get another one of these up and running.
Yeah.
Pocket costs. So maybe think of it that way.
Forget $1, $5. This inflation.
Listen,
Yeah, just go for it. $5.
It's a pandemic, so I'm not going to be greedy. There are other places that
No, I'll be greedy. I'll be greedy for you.
Well, no, I was looking at the numbers. I'm like, oh, that gets me another webinar.
Right.
So listen, a lot of people are unemployed right now. I'm trying to be.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
Yes. So, you know, thank everybody for being here. Dear Producer website has the donation page, sign up for the newsletter, all those things. Thank you guys again. And you know, there's so many, like, oh, also those of you who had questions that we didn't cover, email them to hello@dearproducer.com, because as hopefully I'm able to build more of these, I'll try to like make sure we're covering the things that you guys really want to talk about. And that's all, I think that's it for today. I also appreciate you guys being in such good spirits and just wonderful people. To everybody watching, stay safe, stay at home, and remember that we are in this together. So thank you guys for being here.